Impact. Thank you for joining us for our virtual service. Either you're watching this on our website or on YouTube, or you are listening via podcast. Thanks for kind of checking in to see what's going on. This is going to be a tough one to do virtually, just because in our weekend services, there are so many moving pieces. But I'm going to do my best to communicate what is happening in our weekend services. But it also might be something you could consider swinging back to Facebook. If you can't make it in person this weekend, for January 2nd, our first Sunday of the year, then maybe swing back to Facebook Live and watch that. And it'll be there even after the Sunday service. So some of the things I'm going to talk about at the end, that way you can sort of be there with us in person as much as possible. But for starters, one of the things I'm going to do in the weekend service, right after the first couple songs between another big jammer song, is to just hit some highlights that happened last year. So this is our first Sunday in 2022. And so I thought maybe we could look back at what some of the things God has done in 2021. Like maybe play that song, "Look What the Lord Has Done." Yeah, so I won't play that song, but I did kind of cut my teeth on that song. And I have been thinking about that song a lot, as the Lord has done so much. I've been here at Impact for the last 8 years. 7 of those years I served as the worship and creative arts pastor. And in December of last year, I was given the incredible honor to lead our church through a pretty challenging year. Let's just talk through from December of 2020 to December of 2021. Let me just give you some highlights here. I got it written down here on my old handy dandy iPad. So in December of 2020, one of the first lines of business that came across my inbox is that we were going into 2021 with a 6-figure mortgage delinquency, which means because of the pandemic and because of our inability to pay our bills, as generosity took a dive, as morale took a dive, as attendance obviously took a huge dive, like a big goose egg, because we had no building. I started the 2021 with a 6-figure mortgage delinquency. We were over $100,000 behind. I want to tell you now, we're going into 2022. Not only is our mortgage completely current, we also worked with our lender to provide a break that for the next 3 years, we're saving nearly $10,000 a month. So now we were delinquent, and what the Lord did was not only provide a way for us to be current, but we also are seeing a reduction of nearly $10,000 a month on our mortgage payment each month. I want to tell you more about that at the annual meeting in February, but that's huge. We launched new ministries and new ministry approaches like virtual service, things like drive-by drop-off, if you remember that. We did drive-in style movie nights. We did nights of worship in the parking lot. All of these things were so that you and I, all the way up until we didn't reopen until midway through 2021. In that first part of the year together, we leaned in together to learn how to do distanced and the inability to do in-person gatherings. We found creative ways to be the church, to create community. That was a huge win in 2020. In Christmas of 2020, our children's ministry and outreach worked together to find families in our own community that we could bless for Christmas. And we gave thousands of dollars. You gave thousands of dollars to several families, quite a few families in our church whose Christmas would have struggled because of things the pandemic had done, but you showed up and gave them a great Christmas. We completely rebuilt our website. So now that Curb Appeal no longer looked like the corner of 8299 East Stockton Boulevard, but Curb Appeal was only what we did digitally. We completely revamped and rebuilt a website so that people that wanted to know about Impact could have a real-time updatable website. We had currently not had a website for several years, had been using a free part of Planning Center called Church Center, and that was our landing page. And since then, we have built an interactive, completely well-resourced way people can discover all they want to know about Impact, sign up for small groups, give, meet our staff. All that happened last year. Reopened our building in April of 2021 after 13 months of closing. Together, we reopened a building in April of 2021 after 13 months. That was no small task. We completely rebuilt and relaunched a small group model and had an incredibly successful first launch of small groups. That was amazing. We built and launched a discipleship program in fourth quarter of last year and have since paired quite a few people in one-on-one discipleship. We didn't have a discipleship model. We built that together, and we have paired people one-on-one with iron sharpening iron type of relationship. discipleships, and discipleship is happening and it's working here. We did that together. We got rid of the baptism tank that was in our worship center, and we moved to on-site baptisms in backyards of people. We did this on-site. There was one baptism at Bodega Bay. We did that with more than half a dozen on-site baptisms in pools and hot tubs across the families in our church. And one of them, more than 10 people followed the Lord in baptism. So more than half a dozen baptisms off-site that we did in the middle of a pandemic. We estimate that, this is cool. We estimate that 2 to 4 people per week, strangers, homeless people, come to our office during our office hours saying they need help. And we give out gift cards, and we give out gas cards and grocery cards to resource them with what they need. I asked Deb, she typically is the front lines of that in our office, and she estimated $800, maybe even upwards of $1,000 in gift cards have we given to complete strangers that have shown up and knocked on our door. Impact, remember how I said that I want people to be like, yeah, that's the church that's just really generous. That's the giving church. That is the kind of church that is well on our way to being known as the giving church. Our student ministry has donated multiple days in the summer to Chicks in Crisis, to their facility, to give them a beautification project. We did the same thing at the Mack Road Community Center. Our children's ministry and ISM, Impact Student Ministries, used funds raised from the fireworks booth to donate 10 brand new bikes to Omar and Crossover. Crossover is a ministry that we support here at Impact, and that is a ministry they do. They do sports camps, tutoring right here in our building. And one of the things that they do is just activities for kids after school to keep them out of trouble. And you donated, through your generosity, you donated 10 brand new bikes to Omar's Crossover trailer. And then our friend Chris Gibson, who's a bike mechanic, got all of the other bikes completely tuned up and ready to go for the summer. So Omar is set up for Crossover going into the summer. We've given over $10,000 directly to our ministry partners. Those ministry partners, they attend here, and they've started and launched nonprofits and small groups, and they work for nonprofits and small groups that are doing the front lines of things, directly reaching inner city kids, international students, women's, moms struggling with addiction, all of those, over $10,000 that we've given to resource them and show them the love of Jesus. And what's really cool is if you come to Impact each week, in the far corner, you'll see some of those women as they're in that home, they attend here with us at Impact. I mean, that's the things that I could think about, that I reached out. I haven't gotten the numbers yet, but Jen Jacobs, our outreach director, is compiling a list that doesn't even include the hundreds of meals that we have fed to the homeless, I would say hundreds of pounds of clothing and blankets that we have given to the homeless that show up here every month, and we show them the love of Jesus. That is the kinds of things that together we have accomplished in 2021. In the big house this weekend, we're going to go from there right into a song together, but we don't have that luxury here. So I'm just going to transition right into, hang on, hold that thought, into my message for the weekend service, because I want to talk to us this weekend about what do we do going into 2022? How do we go into 2022 well? What are our goals? What do we want to accomplish? So that's what we've accomplished in 2021. What do we want to accomplish in 2022? I believe that God, Ephesians remind us that we have this God that can give us everything we ask, and then the things we don't even think to ask. And that's what I want for our church going into 2022. I have a brief message that I'll give in service this weekend, because I get to introduce some new people to our church that are here in person. We get to ordain someone here at church, and I'll get to that. But this will be a brief thought, but I want it to be an important thought, maybe even a thought that encourages you, that rather than convict or challenge, that maybe is a cheerleader to you as you head into the new year with us. So I want to think about, maybe you call them resolutions, maybe you call them goals or ambitions or hopes, or a mission statement or a vision statement for you or for your family. I remember saying to one person on staff here, I asked them, do they do resolutions? And the second I said resolutions, they said, oh, I don't do resolutions. I'm guessing that comes from a whole lot of failed resolutions, because we don't like to do things that we know that we're no good at. I remember trying to play basketball when I was a kid. So I was on a couple select teams. I played ball. I had a couple of very, very brief moments. My highlight reel was very, very short. But most of the time I sat on the bench, and eventually when I didn't get to play as often as I like, wasn't as good as I thought. Eventually, basketball turned to me like, I hate basketball because we don't like things that we have a hard time being great at. At least that's the case for me. Maybe that's the case for you. So whether you call them resolutions or not, I think it's important that we set some goals going into 2022. Here in the big house this weekend for services, I'm going to show a video. It's a thought-provoking video of these people that read their journal entries when they were kids going into the new year and what some of those resolutions and those hopes and those dreams were. And they found themselves chuckling over some of the things that they hoped to do. They found themselves emotional over the things that they wish they would have done better. I don't know if you call them resolutions, or I don't know if you call them hopes or dreams or goals or mission statements, but I hope you have a plan of what you want to accomplish going into the new year. I know that we do. As a church, our mission statement is loving God, loving people, changing lives. Our vision statement is we want to help people discover what life with Jesus is all about. But how do we do that? How do we measure that? Maybe for you, it's manage conflict with the spouse better. It's stop yelling at the kids. It's get out of debt. Spend more time with God. Be more generous. Whatever that is, how do you measure that? Because I think sometimes the enemy of resolutions and goals and mission statements, the enemy, believe it or not, of those long-term goals is the today. Matthew tells us, and these are the words of Jesus, so don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow brings its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. I think sometimes the enemy of us ending well is the right now, that we think that when we get there, we hope that we can accomplish these things. And then we wake up tomorrow and that seems unattainable and distant. And so before you know it, we are behind the 8 ball in accomplishing those things because we didn't make today the most that today could be. You want to get to the end of the year less in debt? Well, then what are you doing today? Even if it's $5, you stick aside, and instead of going to Starbucks, you stick that on the side and budget that's going to your credit card bill. That you want to accomplish great things. It's not going to be in this lump sum most of the time. It'll be in the steps day in and day out. Tomorrow has enough trouble of its own, Jesus says. So today, we got to worry about today. The enemy of year-long resolutions is the today. And wake up tomorrow with a new today. And it's getting through that well. Psalms reminds us, it's a very common verse. Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light to my path. What I'm going to do in the worship center this weekend is ask our production team to completely black out the room, go pitch black dark in the room. Then I'm going to pull out my iPhone camera. The iPhone camera does a pretty good job, but if that room is completely dark and I'm trying to see, I hear the door open and I'm trying to see who's coming into the door, that iPhone light is not going to show me who's coming in the door. I might catch a silhouette, but that iPhone light, when that worship center is pitch black dark, I have to walk through it often. Rather than turn on the lights, I just pull out my phone and navigate through it. And I can only see about 2 to 3 feet in front of me. That room gets very, very dark. And so I can only see enough to make sure I don't hit a chair right in front of me, but I can't see very far. We have lights that are hanging above the stage, and we call them the blinders. And so when we want you to sing out, we can turn those on, and it just floods light into all the seats that are in the room. And you turn those on, you can see everything. But Psalms doesn't say that God's word are blinders. It's blinders to our journey. It says that it's a lamp guide to our feet, which means we can only see a little bit in front of us. It's a light for the path, but we don't get to see every nook and cranny and every turn. If you want to continue down this path, down this journey towards accomplishing great things and your family, or for the sake of the kingdom, or for the sake of your generosity and the way that you and your family live your life, you're going to accomplish those with little faithful steps versus these grandiose plans for what the end of the journey looks like. I would say to you that it might do yourself some good to show yourself some grace. Give yourself some time. Take a deep breath when you fall down. Know that he doesn't expect you to know anything about the rest of the year. In fact, he doesn't even expect you to know anything about tomorrow. He says just to worry about today. Proverbs 16:1 says we can make our own plans, but the Lord gives the right answer. We can make our plans, and then there's that conjunction, but As if to say, well, you can plan, but just know that the final word the Lord has. And just 8 verses later, in verse 9 of the same chapter, it says it again and reiterates it a different way. We can make our own plans, but the Lord determines our steps. So we can decide, we can make plans, we can plot a path, but the Lord is the one that is determining our steps. And if we want to accomplish it His way, then it stands to reason that we should let Him drive. He's the one that's guiding our steps. Last year, I traveled several different ways, but specifically last year, I want to look at 2 different ways that maybe we can look at this verse of scripture and see how are we engaging God's plan for our life. Because on one hand, maybe you treat God like He's an Uber driver. I took some Ubers last year, and we treat God like He's our Uber driver, and we jump in the back seat and pull up the app, and He shows up, and we say, I want to go here, and so we just kind of get back on our cell phone, sitting in the back seat, and we just, if God hits traffic, we're like, what's taking you so long? Why didn't you get, if there's a turn that doesn't make sense, we think that God's made a wrong turn because we said we wanted to go here, and we think we know the quickest way to get there. Family, you and I might make a plan, we might set a destination, but God plots our course, and before you know it, there's a block, or there's a different turn than what we anticipated, or life comes and flips it all on its head. God says it's okay to plan, but just know that the final word, that the steps that are taken, that the Lord determines those things. And so give yourself some grace when things don't go the way you imagine. He doesn't expect for you to know that those things are going to come down the pike. He just asks for you to take care of today well. But then another way that I traveled, my wife and I spent our 20th wedding anniversary in Kauai, and in the beautiful green island of Hawaii. It was amazing. Neither of us had been to Hawaii until this past year, and so it was our first time there. We had a mission, we had a resolution, a goal during those 10 days. We wanted to see as much of the beautiful island of Kauai that we could possibly see. It was gorgeous, and we wanted to see as much of it as we can. That was our goal, that was our mission, that was our resolution while we were in Hawaii. And so we booked a helicopter tour. I can guarantee you that when I got to the helicopter and I loaded up into the helicopter and I put these things on and the microphones on, I didn't say, okay, go ahead, take off. Do me a favor, turn left here. When you get down to the rock, make a right, soar at this elevation and then down at this elevation. I didn't say any of that because I had no idea what was on the backside of the mountain. But I will tell you, I'm going to show a video of it in service this weekend of 30-45 seconds of what I got to see in Kauai. And I got to see all that beauty because I decided to let someone that knew more about the landscape from a vantage point that I had never seen, I let them drive. I trusted that they probably knew better. If I wanted to accomplish the mission of seeing more of Kauai, I might need to relinquish control into someone that was more qualified. And it stands to reason that if the Lord already knows the landscape of our lives because He can see from an elevation that we can't see, then it stands to reason that you and I might need to hold loosely what the day-to-day turns look like. And instead we anchor down into doing the best that we can to accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish. What's yours? I'll ask you again, what is yours? You don't have to call it a resolution, but maybe perhaps you do need to get healthy. You need to start eating better. You need to make some decisions that just make sure you stick around longer for your kiddos. Maybe you need to some time to manage your time better. You need to, and your family needs some rhythms and some structures. There's conflict that gets volatile and ugly, and you need to address those things. You need to pay off some of that debt. You need to do whatever. Insert it here. Again, our mission is loving God, loving people, and changing lives. But how do we accomplish that? Otherwise, it's this grandiose resolution that gets lost because today is the enemy of the end of the year resolution. Today has enough troubles for its own. So how do we get to the end of the year having accomplished the things that we set out to accomplish? Well, I have 3 things that I'm going to breeze through briefly and ask you to consider that as you and I are going after the mission and vision of our lives, the resolutions, the plans, the goals of our lives, the 3 things we should keep in mind. For me, I'm talking about us as a church, but you insert whatever yours is here in 2022. May you and us, number 1, celebrate smaller wins. I write that down. Put that on in the rearview mirror of your car. Celebrate smaller wins. Yeah, it would be awesome to have every ounce of debt paid down at the end of the year. But if you can send off $60 this month, send off $60.
Continue on your personal device.
I need a new iPhone. I need a new Apple Watch. But if you can celebrate the $60, high five your spouse and say, "Baby, we did it. We sent $60." Celebrate the smaller wins that you did today, so that you could accomplish the end. For us, what's it look like for people for lives to be changed? How do we measure that? Well, I don't know, but I mentioned every week 2, 4, 5 people show up. They knock on our front door. They walk into the doors of our main office and they sit there and they say, "I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to eat this week. Could you help me?" And we give $50 in grocery cards to them, and we say, "Of course we can help you. We want to help you." So I don't know what it means to make sure that we check the box of, yep, we changed lives well, but we can change that life in that moment on that day. So celebrate smaller wins that go into the pile of you accomplishing your mission, of seeing your resolution come to pass. Number 2, seize every opportunity. I don't know what that means for you. It might mean the day-to-day choices. What does it mean today to make sure that if you get into a conflict with your spouse and you don't want to yell, then take this opportunity. You might yell again in a week, but take this opportunity. I am not going to lose my cool. I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to celebrate the fact that I can do this. I can change the decisions that I make. I can change the way that I engage my spouse. For us, we want to seize every opportunity to love God, love people, and see lives that have changed. What's it mean for us to seize every opportunity to love God? Well, for starters, we don't just some weekends go hard. We don't just put all the emotional energy and physical energy into Christmas and Easter. No, we seize every opportunity to show up and to show God that we as a church love Him. We love sharing His story. We love telling the story of Jesus Christ. And so we're going to take every opportunity, and not just the big ones, not just the ones that matter, not just the ones where the most people show up. We're going to take every opportunity to accomplish that thing that we want to get to the end of the year and have done well together. And lastly, number 3, stop looking back. So number 1, celebrate smaller wins. Number 2, seize every opportunity. And number 3, stop looking back. My wife and I watched a movie when we were in a cabin a couple weeks ago. It was called My Life. I cried my ever-loving eyes out. It's a Bill Murray movie. He has cancer. He's terminal cancer. He's about to pass away, and he's got a camcorder, and he's shooting life lessons to the kid that he imagines he'll never meet, because he'll probably pass away before the kid is born. So he has a camcorder. It's a 1990s movie, and it's just a tearjerker. And one of the things that Bill Murray says, he didn't coin the phrase because I've seen it other places, but he reminded me of it. He says to his kid over a camcorder, something that he hopes they remember is there's a reason why the windshield is so much bigger than the rearview mirror, because what's ahead of you is so much more important than what is behind you. Think of that when you get into your car and there's a gigantic windshield so that you can see everywhere in all directions, and then a tiny, tiny little rearview mirror. And that's because it's what's back there. Yeah, we can learn from it. We need to look out for it. But what's ahead of us is so much more important. One of the things that Mike Vander Dusen used to say, he coined the phrase, and I love it. I've said it since he said it, is we're just stumbling forward together. Like me, Mike didn't apply for the job that he was as lead pastor. A pretty brutal transition, a difficult transition where the elders exited our lead pastor and they asked Mike to lead. He didn't come to Impact planning to be the lead pastor, but he found himself in that role, and he said that we're just going to stumble forward together. It reminded me of a clip I'll show in service this weekend. For this copyright sake, I can't show it online, or they'll mute my video, and YouTube will take down our video. But I'm showing that clip in Toy Story where Woody and Buzz are strapped to a rocket trying to get back to Andy's car. Andy's moving away, and they got left behind, and Andy's devastated, and they got to get back to Andy, and they're strapped to a rocket because Sid was going to kill them and blow them up. So instead what they do is they light the rocket, and they ends up way up in the air. and Woody says, well, this is the part where we blow up. And if you remember the scene, Buzz does that thing. He pushes a button, and his wings open up, and it cuts off the rocket from them just before they explode. And so then the wings, they begin to fly towards Andy. And Woody says, Buzz, you're flying. And if you know it, you know that what Buzz says is, this isn't flying, this is falling with style. And I think sometimes you and I need to look at our mistakes that way. We're on our journey to fly. We sometimes are going to do a little bit of falling with style. Like Proverbs says to us in Proverbs chapter 24, it says, the godly may trip 7 times, but they will get back up again and again. One disaster is enough to overthrow the wicked. The Passion Translation says, for the lovers of God, they may suffer adversity and they may stumble, but they will continue to rise over and over again. They will fall with style. We have to keep short records of the things that we do that where we blow it, or else we will spend so much time gazing in the rearview mirror that we will miss the opportunities that are right there in front of us. Regret and shame is the enemy of progress. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And so you and I need to stop looking back. Instead, stumble forward together. When one of us is falling, then we help the person up, because we are on a journey and a mission to love God, to love people, and to see Him use our church to change lives. That's what we want to see happen in 2022. I have no idea what your mission and your vision is for your family, but write it down. Talk about it with your family. Call a family meeting and say, these are the things we want to do. And start with today to accomplish it. And then tomorrow, you got tomorrow. And then the next day, you've got the next day. You have 365 tries to accomplish that thing. And it's going to take all of them to get there. And some of them will be falling with style, stumbling forward together. And some of them will be reminders that we can do this together. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, it says, I am certain that God, who began the good work within you, will continue His work until it is finally finished on the day when Christ Jesus returns. He will finish what He started. And family, if you could set out to do something and you decide to celebrate the small wins, seize every opportunity, and stop looking back, I genuinely believe that those steps that you plotted, that God will direct your path, and He will point you towards completing that thing that you said. As long as you align those, if your goal is just simply to have a whole lot more money in the bank so that you can have nicer things, I can't promise you that that's going to align with God's will for your life. I hope so. For your sake, I hope so. But when we align our desires to the desires of God, if we are as loving God, loving people, changing lives, all of those things align to the heart of God for this church and for this city, so we can trust that He will complete that thing which He starts. In Service at Impact, this weekend we have the exciting opportunity. I get to share some of the steps that we're taking, the initial steps in trying to accomplish the end goal of loving God, loving people, and changing lives. And one of them is to completely revamp and to retool our family ministries. And so I hope you'll watch it online as we talk about and pray about it together. But to give you a highlight and to give you kind of a 30,000 foot view, beginning this weekend, our student ministries pastor, Anthony Villa, will have a promotion into a role of family life pastor. And so a family life pastor is going to be the go-to sort of the vision and heart and oversight for all things family, birth through parents. When Anthony, some of you guys might know he had ankle surgery. And so when he had ankle surgery, he was out for several months. And Jared led the student ministries. Jared, his desire and his degree are both in his hopes of being a youth pastor. And so we've given Jared the title of Student Ministries Director. Student Ministries Director will be directly under the position of Family Life Pastor. So Anthony will oversee Jared in his Student Ministries Director position, and Jared will oversee the day-to-day operations of Student Ministries. On top of that, we hired a Children's Director. So we hired a Children's Director. Her name is Maggie Gaslam, and Maggie will introduce Maggie in service this weekend. We'll pray over her and her husband as they embark on this thing together. So Anthony, as Family Life Pastor, will oversee the Children's Ministry Director and being the face of children's ministry, the day-to-day operations of loving our kids and loving the parents of those kids as they are in and out of doing things here at our building and even off-site as children's ministry does those kinds of things. Maggie found Jesus when she was in sixth grade here with us. That's been quite a few years ago, but her discovering Jesus in our children's ministry when she was in sixth grade is what ultimately got her brother to join, and he was in seventh grade at the time, and he found Jesus in our student ministries. And then Maggie's parents began to come to church here after she found Jesus when she was in sixth grade. And that's been a long time ago, but Maggie knows the importance of children's ministry as she is a beneficiary of a children's ministry that points kids to Jesus. And now she has the seat and the opportunity to point kids to Jesus here with us. And then lastly, in service this weekend, I hope you'll go to Facebook Live and watch it. We'll get to ordain Deb. Deborah G is our community life director, or she was. Now she'll officially be our community life pastor. What makes this so special and so unique is that Deb was raised to where women would never be pastors. They couldn't be pastors. That was blasphemous to even imply. And Deb has been operating in the role of pastor for years. You have been, many of you have been the beneficiary of Deb loving on you and pointing you towards Jesus. And there's absolutely no reason, zero whatsoever, that we can't and shouldn't honor Deb with the same authority that any of us have as pastors. And so we get to ordain Deb as our first female pastor that Impact has ever ordained. It was actually early on in the early days of Impact written in that we wouldn't ordain women as pastors, and we've revisited that, recognizing what a tragedy that was. And so we are given the incredible opportunity to ordain Deb G in our weekend services this weekend. It begs the question, what have you been told that you can never do? What has someone told you you could never do? That business you could never start, that title you could never have, that dream you could never realize? Well, we're going to squash that this weekend in Deb's life, as she was told she could serve in the church, but she could never be pastor. Officially, as of January 2nd, you can affectionately refer to Deb as Pastor Deb. It'll probably feel weird for her at first, but let's just heap it on her more and more and more and honor Deb just like she deserves. As we go into 2022 together, these are the steps for today. There's going to be a whole lot of steps that we need to take together on our mission to love God, love people, and change lives. Thank you for being on this journey together with us. We just want to help people discover what life with Jesus is all about. I love you guys. I'm thrilled to be going into 2022 with you.